What's something your partner or ex-partner has told you that changed the way you look at them? My ex told me if I ever got a cat, he'd do his best to run it over with his car because he hates cats. That was after I told him I love cats and wanted to go volunteer in a shelter. I had an ex who I thought was totally normal, until the first time I was with her in front of her grandparents. She was so rude and then told me afterward that she feels like the elderly are a waste and a drain on families and society. It didn't last long after that. My ex once casually mentioned that they don't believe in apologizing because they never do anything wrong. That one sentence changed everything. I realized I'd never get accountability or real empathy from them. I'd have lots of stories, positive and negative, but the most screeching halt and turnaround moment was a friend telling me that he can't wait for my sister to turn 18. Sister at the time was 11, he was 23. Either boundaries are made to be broken, or women are so easy to manipulate, said while drunk, or the real brain twister. I can't promise to be faithful, I'll tell you first. I've been gone now a few years. It's been an adventure dissecting different statements as normal versus not normal. My ex once confided in me that she felt incredibly insecure about her intelligence, even though she's one of the smartest people I know. It was a total mind-bender. I'd always admired her quick wit and sharp mind, but never realized she felt that way about herself. It made me see her in a whole new light, and I gained a deep respect for her vulnerability. My ex once told me that he hoped my father would die, so I could see what it's like when things aren't handed to you on a silver platter. He said it was easier for me because my dad worked abroad, and apparently that meant I had some sort of special advantage in life. I left him after that. He seemed sorry enough. It was when I was assaulted by someone, and in my panic I left my keys there. I was too afraid to get them back, so my ex had to meet the guy who assaulted me to get the keys back. My ex said he seemed sorry enough after the meeting. My ex for almost a month made me re-explain what happened nonstop. Eventually he flat out said he didn't believe me. His mom was a police officer. She also blamed me. Eventually, I ended up meeting someone randomly, and in my fuck the world downward spiral, I told this stranger what happened to me. He told me I didn't deserve it, hugged me, and apologized. If a stranger can show more kindness than someone who says they love me, what the fuck? I broke up with my ex that night. He once said, I don't see the sense of helping others if there's no reward. That was a wake-up call. I had no idea how different our ideals were until then. My ex, who was stupid mind you, declared one day there was nothing left for him to learn at his ripe age of 32. I deserved to be cheated on. This was after we'd had a very long and very in-depth conversation regarding my concerns for how close they were growing with my best friend at the time. You need glasses. She was right. You're right. I'm a fucking animal who'll hurt and kill anyone and anything to get my way. My ex once acknowledged that they never expected to find someone who accepted them for who they are. That changed my perspective on them. It brought us closer together and taught me the value of kindness. He confided he was a product of what would be considered statutory rape now. His mother abused him physically and emotionally. Later, she abused his step-siblings as well. She was a social chameleon, very charming and gracious till the public doors were shut. He had aunts and grandparents who loved him and mitigated as they could, realized why order and routine are important to him, and why he noticed even slight fluctuations in my mood. Gave me insight to why he works to always be calm, but also remains distant from most situations and has distrust of people. He told me he'd pick a beer over me any day. On a positive note, my partner was able to be vulnerable with me about some seriously bad stuff that had happened to them. My respect for him reached a newfound level because of how he's tried to handle his life after these events. I'm so proud of him. Well, after he drank too much again, and was late to work again, and pitched a tantrum because it was all my fault apparently, then said if he gets fired he will call my boss and get me fired. Yup, that was it. Never talked to him again after I shuffled him out of my house. Only shit boyfriend I ever had. But he was a doozy. I cheated 3 months ago. During a disagreement, my ex-husband told me that I'm too emotional and he's just opposite of me. And he went on to explain how unemotional he is. His example was that if we had a child, and if the child died, he still wouldn't be emotional. I was on my period and it really hurt. This man told me I am overreacting, lazy, and just avoiding my duties. I called my sister. She picked me up and I never went back to his place. We had dated for 3 months, and that was the first time I got my period at his place. My ex told me that the dinosaur bones were placed by God as a test of faith, and there was nothing I could say that would convince him otherwise. Then I realized that any potential children I had with him would likely be taught this by their father. My ex-partner, that I was too emotional to be around after I found out he dropped my elderly dog off at the vet's and told them he was abandoned and put him down. That my energy was chaotic after he manipulated me into leaving my house with my children so he could move back in with his new GF. 2 months after we split, there were a lot of red flags during the decade we were together, but boy, did he show all his colors when we split. That he has fat folder of the girls he knows besides me. When my ex-wife said money that's just sitting in the bank, not being spent, is being wasted, I knew we weren't going to grow old together. He said, sometimes women make men RAP them. I had to leave that relationship. He sounded like a potential assaulter. If I overreacted, but I just couldn't with him. I was in the hospital after emergency surgery, complications from a C-section the week before. My now ex-husband wouldn't answer my calls. Finally, my doctor called from the hospital phone, and he answered. She told him what was happening, and he said, call me if she dies, and hung up. Later, after surgery, when I was in the most pain of my entire life and scared out of my mind, I called him. He answered and just sat in silence for a minute listening to me cry. Then he said to me, what have I told you about calling me when you're crying? And hung up. Didn't answer the phone for me again for almost a week. I should know we were both active duty military and stationed in different places, so our primary means contact was by phone at that time. That marriage did not last a long time. My STB ex-husband has said a lot of things that made me change how I see him, but I think the one that really did it was when he told me, I don't love you, I only married you for your passport, and I want a divorce. He was drunk and, to this day, claims he just wanted to be nasty and didn't mean it. But that's a line you don't cross. My boyfriend at the time proudly declared that he'd never read a book cover to cover. He was 27. My ex was feeling under the weather and was telling me he needed to get over-the-counter medication, and he had no idea what to get. I was a nurse and recommended something, including how / when he should take it. He scoffed. You're a nurse, a doctor's assistant. You're not even a pharmacist. I realized he didn't respect me or nurses at all. We broke up a month after. The moment she dismissed my anxiety as just an excuse for being lazy. It was like a switch flipped in my brain. I've been dealing with panic attacks and struggling to explain what life with anxiety really felt like. Then she just reduced it all to laziness. That's when I knew she would never understand the battles I fight inside my own head. It wasn't just unsupportive, it was invalidating my entire experience. Trust me, I wasn't looking for sympathy, just a little empathy. It was a sobering reminder that not everyone can walk a mile in another's shoes, nor even take a single step, and that was a deal breaker for me. He said to me, I love that you don't need me to feel entire. This impacted me hard since it was the first time I felt understood and supported in my independence. My ex told me it's unfair that women got their own train wagon and men don't. I explained it to him that it's to prevent women from being SA and creates a safe space for women, especially while traveling during nighttime. He was furious and insisted men should get their own wagon. I absolutely agree that men are victims of SA as well, but he couldn't fathom that this is an issue so many women deal with on a daily basis. Broke up in July. He said he'd pay me back, and he still hasn't. Also, he told me he liked Andrew Tate from Men Empowerment. He told me I was lucky he didn't believe in hitting women. Another one told me it was okay, I couldn't contribute as much financially as him. I could just do more of the housework. I was working and studying full-time while being a single mother, and he was trying to get me to go back with him by talking about buying a house and moving in together. Also, another ex, when breaking up with me, not a long relationship, said that he couldn't handle my insecurity and having to reassure me all the time. Totally understandable, I guess. Except that it extended from me asking how he liked the dinner I cooked. I legit ask everyone that so I know if I should cook it again, woman shrugging. He said, I never really believed in us, I just went along broken heart. For me, I guess it's more confirmed than changed. My husband and I were at an amusement park recently with friends and their 8-year-old daughter who had gone through cancer treatment. She got on a daring ride that did loops and they told her she had to get off, even if she took off her prosthetic. She just looked at her parents and said, does this mean I can never go on upside-down rides? They were distracted and didn't quite hear her or know what to do. My husband said, fuck this. I'm not going to let her think that. Time to be a Karen. And he looked up the ADA and safety regulations on his phone, talked to every manager at the park, and then, even though he gets extremely motion sick, rode the ride with her after they agreed it actually was safe for her to do it. It was the sexiest thing I have ever seen a person do. He threatened suicide and self-harm when I couldn't have sex with him due to a CSF leak. And he screamed at me for obedience. Absolute bell end of a man-child. I was visiting my ex at her college where a lot of our mutual high school class fellows also went. I'm a gregarious guy who likes to greet and small talk with people I know, sort of to foster a community culture. But I had somehow inadvertently snubbed a guy. Don't know exactly what I did, but I kind of left him hanging. And my ex told me she found it extremely sexy. I'm not that person and never want to be that person. So her attraction to me, because I came across as a dick to someone I knew, was disappointing.